Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today we are going to be talking about using the buttons on the Arduino Shield. There are actually no libraries that you need for this. All we're going to be using are some timers. There are a couple ways on the hardware side of things to hook up buttons. The way that we have on the Shield, and you can see this on the schematic in one of the earlier tutorials, the intro to the board. They're connected in a float ground setup, so by default they're floating, so they're not connected to a ground or or any kind of voltage. When they're pressed, that's when they get grounded, and that's what the digital pin detects. So the digital pin is looking for when it's either floating or grounded. When it sees floating, it calls it high, and when it sees it grounded, it calls it low. So I have some code set up here. All this code does is when I press button 1, it's going to increment a value starting at 0, and when I press button 2, it's going to decrement that value. So let's start going through the code here. So this in button value, that's just what the value is going to start at. That's just to show that it's working. Serial.begin, that initializes the serial communication and sets it to a baud rate of 115200. Pin mode is just going to set the pin that we are calling. That's going to set that to an input. Pins can generally be inputs or outputs. So we are just telling the Arduino board that we want digital pin 2 to be set as an input. And the line after that, we tell the Arduino, we just declared it as an input, but let's start that input as a high signal. And then the third line here, these three lines are referring to button 1, and the next three lines are referring to button 2. But after the digital write, we are going to attach an interrupt to the button. So the button, again, it can either be high or low, and all this attach interrupt function is saying is on digital pin 2, the one that we declared as an input, and the one that we said to start as high, we want that to call button 1, the function button 1, which is down here, and we'll see that here in a second. We're going to call button 1, and we want it to trigger the interrupt on the falling portion of the signal. So there are several options for what you want it to detect the interrupt on. It could be a rising signal, a falling signal, or a changing signal, and then I think there are a couple other options as well. Either way, we are going to be using the falling, so whenever it detects a high to a low, so whenever the button is pushed down, we want it to trigger the interrupt and recognize that a button was pressed. So the three lines after that, I'm not going to talk through that. It's the exact same as the last three, except instead of calling digital pin 2, we're going to call digital pin 3, which is where we have button 2 connected to. Void loop, there's nothing in here, but you actually need to have it for the code to function properly. Void button 1, this is very, very simple code here. It's incrementing that button value, the one that we initially defined up here. It's just going to increment that value by 1 if we press button 1, and then it's going to print that value to the serial monitor. And then button 2, which is connected to the third digital pin, as you can see right here. This is the function that it's going to call whenever we press down on button 2, and all it's going to do is decrement the value, and then it's going to print that to and all that's going to do is it's going to print that to the serial monitor. So I'm going to upload this program, and then I will show you that it is working. Alright, so the code finished uploading successfully here. I will show you my webcam, and then let's go to Tools, Serial Monitors, so that we can see it in working in progress. So you can see when I press button 2, it decrements it. When I press button 1, it increments it, and it can go up, down, whatever works. Anyways, that is the tutorial. Hopefully that was of some help, and I will see you in the next video.